Hello and welcome to Expression Emporium, a channel dedicated to, well, expressing things. Today, we're strapping ourselves in for a wild ride through the muddiest, most scandal-ridden swamps of American political history. We're talking about those moments when the curtain was pulled back, and instead of finding a well-oiled machine of democracy, we found, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. So buckle up, folks. We're about to uncover the shocking truths, the jaw-dropping betrayals, and the political maneuvering that would make even a used car salesman blush. Stay tuned, because you won't believe some of the stuff these politicians tried to pull. And frankly, after hearing it, you'll probably need a long, hot shower. Watergate. It's not just a hotel, folks, it's a potent cocktail of political intrigue, paranoia, and a truly staggering amount of Scotch tape. Imagine this. 1972, Richard Nixon is president, sporting a truly magnificent set of sideburns, and what seems like an insurmountable lead in the polls. So naturally, what does he do? He decides to wiretap the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel, because, just to make sure he's got this whole winning thing in the bag. Now, you'd think that with a name like CREEP, and yes, that was the actual name of the group behind this, the Committee to Re-elect the President, they might have been a tad less conspicuous. But no, these masterminds decided subtlety wasn't their strong suit, and they got caught. Now, you might think getting caught breaking into your opponent's headquarters would be the biggest scandal here. And in fairness, it's a pretty solid contender. But hold on to your hats, folks, because the real scandal was the cover-up that followed. We're talking hush money. We're talking erased tapes. We're talking presidential pardons. It was like watching a toddler try to hide a spilled juice box. Except instead of juice, it was the integrity of the American political system. Now, Nixon, bless his heart, he tried to play it cool. He would often appear in front of the press, attempting to project an air of calm and control. His demeanor was meant to reassure the American public that everything was under control, that there was nothing to worry about. He denied everything, declared himself not a crook, and for a while people actually believed him. His confident assertions and vehement denials seemed to work, at least temporarily. The public wanted to believe their president, to trust in the integrity of the office he held. I mean, who wouldn't trust a man with sideburns like that? Those sideburns became a symbol of his era, a quirky detail that made him seem more relatable, more human. They were almost a distraction from the serious accusations being leveled against him. But then, the truth started to unravel faster than a cheap suit at a buffet. The media began to dig deeper, uncovering more and more details about the Watergate break-in and the subsequent cover-up. Journalists were relentless, and the story quickly gained momentum. The smoking gun? Audio tapes. These weren't just any tapes, they were recordings that Nixon himself had made capturing conversations that would ultimately seal his fate. Turns out, Nixon had been secretly recording everything in the Oval Office. Every meeting, every conversation, meticulously documented on tape. It was a move that would come back to haunt him in ways he could never have imagined. I'm not sure why, maybe he was hoping to release a greatest hits album, who knows. The sheer volume of recordings was staggering and the content was damning. It was as if he had unwittingly created a detailed account of his own downfall. But these tapes, they became the Rosetta Stone of the Watergate scandal, revealing the truth behind the break-in and the subsequent cover-up. They provided irrefutable evidence of the president's involvement, leaving no room for doubt or denial. Faced with impeachment and the very real possibility of jail time, Nixon did what any self-respecting president on the verge of being ousted would do: he resigned. It was a dramatic and unprecedented move, one that shocked the nation and the world. In his resignation speech, he spoke of the importance of healing the nation and moving forward. He tried to strike a conciliatory tone, urging Americans to come together and put the scandal behind them. And then, he hopped on a helicopter and flew away, leaving America to pick up the pieces of its shattered trust in the government. The image of Nixon waving goodbye as he boarded Marine One became an iconic moment in American history. The Watergate scandal was a political earthquake, the aftershocks of which are still felt today. It fundamentally changed the way Americans viewed their leaders and their government, instilling a deep sense of skepticism and mistrust. It showed the world that no one, not even the president, is above the law. The hearings were a spectacle, broadcast live on television, and they captivated the nation. The proceedings were a stark reminder of the importance of accountability and transparency in government. And it left an indelible stain on American politics, a constant reminder that power corrupts, and absolute power, well, you know the rest. The legacy of Watergate continues to influence political discourse, serving as a cautionary tale for future generations of leaders. All right, folks, buckle up because we're about to dive headfirst into the murky waters of the Iran-Contra Affair, a tale so convoluted, so bizarre, it makes Watergate look like a game of patty cake. Picture this. It's the 1980s, Ronald Reagan is president, and he's got this whole Morning in America thing going on. But behind the sunny optimism, there was a dark secret brewing, a secret arms deal so shady it would make even the most seasoned arms dealer blush. You see, the Reagan administration, in all their infinite wisdom, decided to sell weapons to Iran. Now, this wouldn't be so bad, except for one tiny detail. Iran was our sworn enemy at the time, and selling arms to them was, illegal. But wait, there's more. It gets even weirder. Remember those Contra rebels in Nicaragua, the ones the US government was forbidden from funding? Well, it turns out, the money from the Iranian arms sales was secretly being funneled to the Contras. Essentially, the Reagan administration was selling weapons to our enemies and using the money to fund a war we weren't supposed to be involved in. Now at the center of this whole tangled web was a man named Oliver North, a Marine colonel with a penchant for shredding documents and a face that just screamed, "I'm up to something." North was a key player in the Iran-Contra operation, and when the scandal broke, he became the face of the whole debacle. He testified before Congress, admitting to misleading lawmakers and destroying evidence. But in a move that surprised absolutely no one, he claimed he was just following orders, acting in the best interests of America. The Iran-Contra affair was a major embarrassment for the Reagan administration. It exposed the dark underbelly of American foreign policy, and it showed how easily good intentions can be twisted into something far more sinister. The scandal also raised serious questions about the limits of presidential power and the accountability of government officials. In the end, 11 people were convicted of crimes related to the Iran-Contra affair, but most of their convictions were later overturned or pardoned. The scandal left a lasting legacy of distrust in the US government and a sense that, when it comes to foreign policy, anything goes. And that, my friends, is a truly terrifying thought. The 1920s, a time of flapper dresses, jazz music, and, oh yes, government corruption so brazen it would make your bathtub gin curdle. We're diving headfirst into the Teapot Dome scandal, a tale so ludicrously corrupt it's a wonder they didn't turn it into a cartoon. Picture this. Warren G. Harding, a man whose mustache could make a walrus jealous, is president. Enter Albert Fall, Harding's Secretary of the Interior, who thought public lands meant my personal piggy bank. He leased oil reserves to tycoons Harry Sinclair and Edward Doheny at bargain basement prices. Now, you might think the American public would be outraged by this blatant disregard for, basic decency. And you'd be absolutely correct. The news hit the streets like a thunderbolt, sending shockwaves through every corner of society. People were flabbergasted, their morning coffee nearly spilling as they read the headlines. The sheer audacity of the corruption was enough to make anyone's blood boil. And you'd be right, the stench of corruption was so strong it could knock you over in a speakeasy. Imagine the scene, a crowded bar, the air thick with smoke and jazz, and suddenly, the whispers start. Did you hear about the scandal? Can you believe the nerve of those guys? The disgust was palpable, mingling with the scent of bootleg liquor. Newspapers, those brave crusaders of truth and vaguely libelous headlines, caught wind of the deal and started sniffing around like bloodhounds at a sausage factory. Reporters were relentless, their typewriters clacking away as they pieced together the sordid details. The newsroom buzzed with energy, a hive of activity as journalists chased leads and uncovered more dirt. The Senate decided to launch an investigation because even in the roaring 20s, some things were just too scandalous to ignore. The hearings were a spectacle, drawing crowds and media attention. Senators grilled witnesses, their questions sharp and probing, determined to get to the bottom of the mess. The chamber was packed, every seat filled with eager spectators. And let me tell you, these hearings were juicier than a gossip circle at a flapper party. The details that emerged were scandalous, each revelation more shocking than the last. People couldn't get enough. hanging on every word, every twist and turn of the investigation. It was the talk of the town, the subject of every conversation. Bribes, cover-ups, missing witnesses, secret loans. It had everything but a Charleston competition, and frankly, that's just bad planning on their part. The intrigue was endless, with secretive meetings held in shadowy corners and money-changing hands in the dead of night. Witnesses mysteriously disappeared, adding to the drama and suspense. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Fall was about as trustworthy as a bootlegger with a hangover. His involvement was undeniable, his actions brazen. The evidence piled up, painting a damning picture of greed and corruption. Fall's reputation was in tatters, his name synonymous with scandal. He'd accepted bribes from Sinclair and Doheny, disguised as loans and gifts, including a $100,000 loan that mysteriously vanished faster than a bottle of gin at a college party. The sums involved were staggering, the transactions shady. It was a web of deceit, with money flowing in all directions, disappearing without a trace. In the end, Fall became the first cabinet member in American history to be convicted of a felony while in office. His fall from grace was swift and brutal, a cautionary tale of power and corruption. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation as the judge delivered the sentence. It was a historic moment, a turning point in American politics. Sinclair and Doheny, those pillars of ethical business practices, managed to wriggle out of their charges, proving that some things never change. Their relief was evident, their smug expressions telling a story of their own. They had dodged a bullet, their fortunes intact, their influence unscathed. It was a bitter pill for the public to swallow, a reminder of the inequalities that persisted. And as for Harding, well, he conveniently died in office before the full extent of the scandal came to light. His death added another layer of mystery, a question mark that hung over the entire affair. The public mourned, but there was an undercurrent of suspicion, a sense that not everything was as it seemed. Coincidence? I'll let you be the judge. The story of the scandal remains a fascinating chapter in American history, a tale of ambition, greed, and the quest for justice. It serves as a reminder that the walls of power can close in, but the truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply it's buried. And now, for a scandal that needs no introduction. It's the 1990s, and Bill Clinton finds himself in a bit of a predicament. The leader of the free world had been involved with a young White House intern named Monica Lewinsky. The story, when it broke, was like a tabloid tornado ripping through the nation's capital. Denials were issued, cigars were mentioned, and the entire country found itself on a first-name basis with Kenneth Starr. Cable news went into overdrive, and late-night talk show hosts had a field day. The House of Representatives decided to impeach President Clinton, a dramatic political trial for a president lying about an affair, like using a sledgehammer to swat a fly. The Senate, however, was having none of it. Removing a president over a personal indiscretion would set a dangerous precedent. Clinton was acquitted, finished his term, and became a global elder statesman. Monica Lewinsky became a cautionary tale. The scandal exposed the dark underbelly of American politics. Let's rewind to a scandal that shook American foreign policy, the Pentagon Papers. In 1971, during the Vietnam War, a former military analyst named Daniel Ellsberg revealed the truth. He had access to a top-secret study detailing U.S. involvement in Vietnam. The Pentagon Papers exposed government deception and lies about the war. Imagine finding out your government had been lying to you about a war costing thousands of lives. Ellsberg, knowing that the American people deserved to know the truth, decided to leak the Pentagon Papers to the press. These documents, which detailed the United States' political and military involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1967, revealed a stark contrast between the government's public statements and its private actions. Ellsberg's decision was not made lightly. He understood the potential consequences, but felt a moral obligation to expose the truth. And thus began a game of cat and mouse between the government and the media, a First Amendment showdown that would have far-reaching consequences. The press, armed with the explosive content of the Pentagon Papers, found itself at odds with a government determined to keep its secrets hidden. This clash was not just about the documents themselves, but about the very nature of democracy and the role of a free press in holding power to account. The Nixon administration, already paranoid and obsessed with leaks, went into full panic mode. President Nixon and his advisors saw the leak as a direct threat to their authority and a dangerous precedent. They feared that if the press could publish classified information with impunity, it would undermine their ability to govern and protect national security. The administration's response was swift and aggressive, seeking to prevent further publication and to punish those responsible. They tried to block publication of the papers, arguing that it would harm national security. The government filed lawsuits against the New York Times and the Washington Post, seeking injunctions to stop them from publishing any more excerpts. This legal battle was unprecedented, raising fundamental questions about the limits of press freedom and the government's power to control information. But the press, bless their ink-stained souls, stood their ground. Journalists and editors, recognizing the importance of the information they held, refused to be intimidated. They believed that the public had a right to know the truth about the government's actions and were willing to risk legal repercussions to ensure that the information was made public. The New York Times, followed by the Washington Post and other newspapers, began publishing excerpts of the Pentagon Papers, arguing that the public had a right to know what their government was doing in their name. These publications faced immense pressure, both legally and politically, but their commitment to transparency and accountability never wavered. Their actions set a powerful example of journalistic integrity and courage. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court in what became a landmark victory for freedom of the press. The legal battle was intense, with arguments focusing on the balance between national security and the public's right to know. The Supreme Court's decision was eagerly awaited, as it would have profound implications for the future of press freedom in the United States. The court ruled in favor of the newspapers, affirming the principle that the government cannot censor the press, even when it comes to sensitive information. This ruling was a monumental affirmation of the First Amendment, reinforcing the idea that a free press is essential to a functioning democracy. It underscored the importance of transparency and accountability, even in matters of national security. The Pentagon Papers had a seismic impact on American society. The revelations contained within the documents shocked the public and led to widespread outrage. People began to question the government's honesty and integrity, leading to a significant shift in public opinion about the Vietnam War and the government's role in it. It fueled the anti-war movement, eroded public trust in the government, and led to the creation of new laws aimed at protecting whistleblowers. The impact of the Pentagon Papers extended beyond the immediate political fallout, influencing future policies and the way the government interacted with the press and the public. It was a powerful reminder that in a democracy, the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how hard those in power try to bury it. The legacy of the Pentagon Papers continues to resonate today, serving as a testament to the enduring importance of a free and independent press in safeguarding democracy and ensuring that the government remains accountable to the people it serves. Well, folks, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of some of the biggest political scandals in history. From Watergate to the Pentagon Papers, these scandals have exposed the dark underbelly of power, the abuse of authority, and the importance of a free and independent press. Thanks for watching Expression Emporium. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more intriguing content. Let us know in the comments which scandal shocked you the most. Was it Nixon's paranoia, Reagan's secret dealings, or Clinton's, shall we say, extracurricular activities? Until next time, remember the truth is out there, even if it's sometimes hidden behind a veil of secrecy, lies, and a whole lot of legal paperwork. Good night.